If you're looking for a head of marketing, I'm not the right person, to be honest. Marketing and growth aren't the same thing. And so I explained it to them why I didn't think it was the same thing, and we'll get more into that later. And I thought, I've learned this. I spent 2 hours on this call, and now I've just basically told them, like, you're asking me shit questions because you're implying that I'm head of marketing. Lucky for me, it turns out it was a trick question, and that they understood this too.
Looking like a baddie, I show up and make them stop. Wanna know my name so badly, cause I run this whole block. Flip my hair, move my head, show the world I'm royalty. When I walk by, they be taking bows, cause they know I'm the queen, yeah.
Hi there, I'm here to talk to you about why growth isn't marketing. It's a bold statement, and it's one I've had positive reactions from, negative reactions from, but it's a really important one. You see, I've come a long way in this growth space. I started out in 2015 and no one knew what growth hacking was. Heck, we called it growth hacking. We would not use that word anymore these days. But people just thought I was like this guy behind my desk, kind of hacking away, like doing my thing. And that really wasn't the case. So after trying to explain this to drunk people at parties and realizing they are not going to get what I'm doing, I decided to be lazy and call myself marketing. I was like, I'm marketing, it's like a lifestyle thing, kind of data-driven marketing. Maybe I'll get creative and say growth marketing, but that often got weird looks too, so I just kept it simple. And now I'm here, 8 years later, saying it's not the same thing. And luckily I realized this a bit earlier than that, because let's fast forward a bit. Let's go to 2020, when I decided to take the switch, because I was on the agency side as a growth hacker, and go to a head of growth role. And so I was interviewing for this role, and Heights is a brain care company, and the two founders, Dan and Joel, were asking me question after question. And I was really excited, and I thought, this sounds really cool. I'm really excited. But then they kept asking me questions like, what's your experience with brand awareness? Have you done influencer campaigns? Do you know much about PR? And I was there like, I thought this was the head of growth role. Sounds like marketing. I think I have to get the old explanation out. Let's just make it clear. And I said something that I thought was a bit blunt, bit Dutch, because I'm Dutch, so very blunt. I was like, if you're looking for a head of marketing, I'm not the right person, to be honest. Marketing and growth aren't the same thing. And so I explained it to them why I didn't think it was the same thing, and we'll get more into that later. And I thought, I've learned this. I spent 2 hours on this call, and now I've just basically told them, like, you're asking me shit questions because you're implying that I'm head of marketing. Lucky for me, it turns out it was a trick question, and that they understood this too. And that they were sick of marketeers trying to say that they were growth, but all they wanted to focus on was acquisition. And the founders realized, we aren't going to grow purely just by acquisition. We need to look at the full thing. We're a subscription product. People sign up for a subscription for the brain supplement. We need to keep them in. We need to add value. We want to also add digital experiences to it all. We don't want to just focus on this purely bringing people in, that a lot of these people who said they were growth was the only thing they were talking about. We want someone who's going to look at the full thing and figure out where to focus. So after a few further interviews and getting to meet the rest of the team, I got that amazing call, that moment where you say, here, I've got the job. I've had the opposite call too, but this time, no, I've got the job. The founders agreed. They weren't the same. So why am I telling you all this? That's because in 2021, I ended up basically leading the marketing team. So all this, claiming that I changed, claiming that I knew the difference and that they weren't the same, I fell exactly for that trap. And I always say, if you don't listen to the feather that life tickles you with, it starts throwing bricks at your head. And this was a brick. And it's going to get a lot worse before I realized that I would never, ever, ever equate growth and marketing again in my life after this. And why you should never do it either. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about how did I end up leading the marketing team, why we specifically need to separate brand marketing, and that this crucial part of marketing is another reason why these two can't be the same. We're going to get into definitions. We're going to talk about marketing, product, growth, and why these are all different, and how some of the terminology we're using is actually causing more harm than good. And then we're going to move forward because, end of the day, the key thing is that you're setting up your organization in a way to be successful and not just saying, hey, we got growth. It's part of the marketing team, or our head of growth is reporting into our VP of marketing. No, enough of that. We're going to show you how to structure your growth team properly. I'm going to give you 3 options, and I'm going to explain why each one has its advantages and disadvantages. But before we do that, let's continue with the public humiliation of how I equated growth and marketing. After all, let's go back to hats and how it all went wrong. And I can't blame anyone for this, by the way. This is fully my own fault. But it's been a huge learning, and it's why I'm so passionate about this topic at this point in time. And also, I've seen the difference that it causes in understanding these definitions. So it's more than buzzword bingo here, guys. So I joined Heights 2020, September 2020 to be very precise. And one of the first things I noticed in analyzing the full business, talking to customers, talking to people on our email list, was we had been very soft for pushing for conversions before I joined. People on our email list receiving a newsletter, which, by the way, the newsletter existed before the company. So people have been receiving this for a good 12, 18 months at this point. Didn't know we had a product. That's how soft we were on conversions. We weren't showing anything about why they should try it and trust it. And I'm like, hey, growth opportunity, chance to get a quick win in, and show them that we need to be able to sell it. We don't need to go like full on like salesy, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, but we need to sell a little bit more than what we can do. So that's what we did. The first few months, I started making changes with the team. We worked together on it, and we started bringing benefits more forward, why they should try the product, what was good about it. We really did a lot of message market fit work and to get that messaging right, and saw huge conversion lifts from that in really understanding their jobs to be done and communicating their benefits from that. It also helped improve the ads. We shared a Trustpilot more. We had such a good rating. I think it was like 4.8. At one point it was 4.9. I'm like, it's too high, guys. People aren't going to trust this. But it was like, averaging usually 4.8, on a bad day, like 4.7. So we were like, we need to share this more and show why people love the product, why they're feeling the benefits of it and the value. We need to not be afraid to sell via email. We don't have to go full out on the newsletter, but let's at least do a few sales-focused emails and test around with that. And we also knew that when the founder talked about the product, it sold really well. So we got him on podcasts talking about it. And it was working. It was great. We were seeing 10 to 25% month-on-month growth every month. And that was incredible. I joined when it was 28,000 monthly recurring revenue. And in the 18 months I was there, we managed to get it up to 343,000. So 11, 12xing it. But it wasn't a straight line. So whilst this was working and doing well, I did my usual thing where I'm like, if this is working, we should do more of it. But before I could do that, we had another kind of issue happen. We'd hired a head of content. She started 2-3 months after I did, to lead the social and the content team because they were reporting into the co-founder. And we knew that brand awareness and building the space of brain care and creating that space was really important. But after a month and a half, we realized it wasn't a fit. And so this meant suddenly that the person reporting into her, Emma, was left without a manager. And I'd gotten to know Emma at this time. And Emma, still a good friend, is incredible. She's so smart. She's so creative, full of ideas. You give her feedback, she takes it on in a second. She's incredible. And so when she was left without a manager, I thought, this sucks. This isn't fair. She's someone great who needs someone to also help her and has the time, because co-founders don't have the time to do that necessarily. As a team is growing, they don't always have the time. So I was like, you know what? You're one of us. Join the growth team. We're really cool. We do cool stuff. We're going to work together. We're very different. I'm super into the data. You're super into the creative, but we can learn from each other and let's grow together. Very corny, but I didn't put it that corny, don't worry.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.
So we did that, and I was like, okay, let's keep doubling down on what's working. But this is what's working here. Hopefully this can help you on the social side. But the problem is that it meant that we started pushing for conversions quite heavily, because I'm a data person. Like, as much as I think creative is important, if I can't measure it, I'm like, what am I meant to do here, guys? Like, this is my jam. I studied finance even. I love my numbers. So I started pushing for conversions because awareness, there's metrics, but it just didn't feel like the right metrics for me. I'd always focused on conversions. And so our product feed went from like nearly never showing the product to kind of having quite a lot of product, because there was quite a heavy push on that conversion side for the social team. And also, to make it worse, was like, you need to follow the growth process. You need to score the things that you're working on so we can prioritize properly. We need to experiment, run everything as an experiment, and we need to make sure things are measurable. And, you know, it's not a great process for a brand. Because let's take two brand awareness ideas. They have the same reach, and we're just going to score a price, but the idea is the same for whichever framework you're using. You've got idea one. It's not a huge impact. That's good. We're scoring 1 to 5 here. It's medium. We're quite confident in it. It's quite like, we've done this kind of stuff before. We know it works. Posting content about the product. It's low effort. Let's do it. It's a high score. But idea two, it's risky. It's got a lower confidence. See it here. The impact is way higher. And it's also more effort. And it's suddenly halving the score. And what does this mean? That your high impact, your riskier, creative ideas, they are getting low scores. And they're not being implemented. And that's the problem. Because we're then killing some of the best ideas. Because I think growth doesn't come from staying in your comfort zone doing the same things. Like, a lot of brand is harder to measure. We're not as confident, but, the riskier things are to work out. And so I had this growing brand marketing team because, Emma did not stay as the only one on the social media side for long, or in the general brand space. We started getting a copywriter. We got another social media exec. The team was growing, and they had no room for creativity at all. Because my little experimentation and scoring was just taking any big, creative, fun idea and just smushing it. Not great. And looking now, I'm kind of like this. I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? But when you're in the thick of things, you don't think it matters, and you don't realize what's happening. And so let's continue down this it gets worse train. Our team started to grow. When I started, I only had like a growth exec, a social media manager. It was the product team. The product team and the growth team started growing. And because we didn't hire someone new to replace the head of content who didn't work out, they came in my team. Because, again, I was like, hey, why not? This is working. I think it's working. And my team started growing. My team was just this big mix of growth and marketing, basically. And then growth started to slow down. So despite being bigger, having more resources, we were investor backed, so it was not that I had a limit on me in any way in terms of like what sort of ad spends. This was pre-Uber focus on profitability, which I'm very glad for, but that's a different topic. And there was no excuse, basically. Like, growth was slowing down and what we were doing wasn't working. And so I started doing analyses, because data, that's where I go to. And I noticed that since we made this switch, our engaged audience hadn't grown that much. If we looked at the amount of people engaging with us in the last 30 days through email, through podcast, through social, it's kind of stabilized around the same rate. Like, here we had a big campaign that led to a big growth the next month. But it's kind of stabilized and not really grown. And whilst we've gotten way more effective in terms of converting that audience, we were not growing it as much because we were all focused on this conversion goal. And it's easy for me to be like, look, we didn't have head of brand marketing. What was that to do? I was just trying to be helpful, I was trying to lead them. But it's not so much leading them, it's the fact that I forced them to focus on conversion KPIs and follow the growth process. And slice it how you like, but brand is a huge part of marketing, and it's really, really important. And by accidentally equating the two, I was forcing them to do the growth way instead of having the room to do their own brand marketing way. So how do we turn it around? Because it's not all doom and gloom, and we might have spent the first part on that, but we're going to switch it around. We started looking for a head of marketing, brand marketing. I went to the founders and told them, like, look guys, I've made a huge mistake taking them and my team. I should have pushed you guys harder to find a replacement. Like, it's easy, like, to feel like the house wasn't on fire, but now the house is really on fire and we need someone in that brand marketing. Like, as eager as I am to learn about it, it's not my strength. I have some creativity, but I'm not like a creative person by nature. I'm not passionate about any of these areas. That's why I went into growth and not marketing. It's why I did a finance master instead of a marketing one, because at my university, the marketing was all of this side. It was the brand side. And I was like, this is not what I want. And though, you know, there's a broader part, we definitely need that brand part too. Please go to someone who is specialized in this and can give them the right approach for them. And in the meantime, that doesn't mean we continue as is, because if it's not working, we need to change. So let's split up those two teams. Let's encourage brand to pursue the top of the funnel, and let's use a different process for each team. And I really encouraged the brand team, which, you know, in all honesty, like, Emma was practically leading at that time anyways. Like, she was the most senior person in the team. She knew what she was doing. She is incredible at what she was doing. So they didn't need me to force them to do their own process. So I gave them, Emma and the team, the freedom to change that around and to focus on their parts, their way of doing it. And if we look at these two and we really try to break it down, like, the two groups should be focusing on different parts. Yes, growth can focus on top of the funnel, but not consistently, not all the time, because if it's not the biggest growth lever, that's not where the growth team should be focused on. And whilst both are led by strategy and both will have a bit of creativity and data driven, because this is where other people are like, I'm in growth, but I'm also creative. And I'm like, I'm not saying that everyone's creative or data driven, but some people are more one side, some people are more the other side. And usually the brand marketing people are more the creative side, and that's awesome. And the growth people are very commonly data driven. And the brand team worked on bigger projects. They stopped using the whole experimentation approach, which was fair enough. And they started working more campaign-based things that allowed them to do bigger things and drive bigger impact, really focus on what was driving the impact, whilst we were using prioritization frameworks. And so they have a different leader and they have different focus areas. And so when we equate growth and marketing, we lose this distinction of this approach of a key part of marketing, brand marketing. And so you need to see, when you're structuring these teams, how to give them the freedom to play to their strengths, but also make sure they're aligned and that they can work together effectively. And to give them their own KPIs. And these are just some general groupings of the kind of KPIs, but growth is usually focused more on those conversion KPIs, retention, referral, and brand is more focused on awareness, engagement, trying to get good measures of that, brand search over time or brand search relative to competitor, order fill space search. Customer loyalty index is another great measure for the brand loyalty side of it, but they're looking at different metrics for brand awareness and brand loyalty versus growth. And it doesn't mean that we don't care about each other's KPIs and we're like, oh, if it brings awareness, we don't care, or if it brings, you know, conversions that the brand team doesn't care, they do, you know, it's all about just, you know, likes and comments. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we give each other the room to focus on each of our parts, but we do care about each other's KPI, because at the end of the day, we're both working towards that North Star metric. What's that overarching goal in the sky? That's what we're working towards. So what about marketing and all of this? And where does product fit in? Because, you know, brand marketing, it's fair enough, it's not all of marketing. And, you know, product is also a really key player in this. So it's a good one. Let's break it down. And for this, we're going to have to go even further back, I'm afraid. Back in the old days, when I was in uni, I was taught the 4 Ps. And this was also kind of the framework that a lot of like marketers who've been in the space far longer than I have this perception. Marketing is these 4 paths: product, price, placement, and promotion. And then we have brand, which falls under product. And then we have brand awareness that falls under promotion. The reality in startups is the following. Product and price strategy usually goes to the product team. And placement, so where are we going to sell and distribute, usually goes more to like an ops team. And it varies, but this is the general gist. That leaves us with the brand part of product and the promotion side, which includes the brand awareness. And as a result, that's kind of what's been left on the marketing side of it in most cases. Except if we then look at what growth comes from, it's way more than even just these 4 blocks. Like, it's also a matter of, what the data is showing, even the ops side of it, which I haven't even included in this list because this list could go on for ages. The company culture, the strategy, like there's so many different parts of it. Growth is not a single department. It's way more. And so I tried to map it out. And this is probably far from complete, and I was running out of space at a certain point. But if we look at like growth, marketing, product, there are areas that each of them overlap. We have fun little names for each of those areas. And we have, product marketing, and we have the product-led growth, which is ever growing in popularity, which is the overlapping part between product and growth. And we have the growth marketing side of it, which is a way more common term now than growth hacking. And I won't get into why growth hacking is a terrible term to begin with, but, this is kind of the new one, growth marketing. And it's looking more at that overlap. And then we have, brand and marketing, and we have all these overlapping. And in some companies, it might be different. What falls under here might fall under product or growth or marketing. And there isn't a set all and one all, but there are also parts to each part of it that don't overlap, that fall under product, that fall under growth, that fall under marketing. And if we dive deep into those little parts of it, the overlapping parts, we look at growth marketing, it's like growth, and the definition is like growth marketing is marketing 2.0. We're always looking for a replacement for marketing, got to jazz it up a bit. Marketing. So, and we look at it and it's like got a little bit about on the page, but it's mainly, the definitions I see are mainly focused really on that acquisition side of it. And so the problem with this then is that when we're like, okay, well, growth isn't marketing, let's just call it growth marketing instead, which is kind of the solution I see happening a lot, is that we ignore the fact that growth is often product-led, and that building a product and service with a high product market fit, building in virality and retention, like even if it's not a digital product, is so crucial to the success of growth. So when we call it growth marketing, we're ignoring that whole other side of that Venn diagram, and that's dangerous. But what about the other side? Let's move into the all-growing praise the craze of product-led growth. If we look at the definition, this one is a bit broader. It's saying like, okay, user acquisition, expansion, conversion, retention, and it's driven primarily by the product itself. And I do love the fact that the definition of this is very focused on, alignment across the team. But it really sees the product as the source of growth. And this almost gets to the point where some product-led growth people, organizations, almost think like, if it's not led by the product, it's not valuable. And it devalues, again, these other areas, because growth isn't just product either. And I can't dive into this fully now in terms of time, but we need to remember that growth also includes some marketing as well. We've seen the fact that a lot of the marketing efforts that heights in general help growth, improving customer journey, the conversion channels, the brand awareness around it all. This is really key, but they don't come directly from the product. And so by trying to box it off, we're causing all these issues. Growth isn't marketing, growth isn't product even. Growth isn't one discipline. It's not one department. And whilst I do really believe, because I feel like I probably just created a lot of haters for me in the last few minutes about the product-led. I believe in product-led growth. I love product-led growth, and I do believe it is the foundation of good, strong growth. It's not the only part. It's not the result of just the product. It's a result of a combination of the growth, the marketing, the product, and also all the other departments who are killing it to help grow their company. And so we need to see growth less as a department. Stop trying to equate it and stop trying to give it a new name to everything. Let's just maybe leave it growth. And make it more this disciplined approach. Make it more a mindset, a way of working. Because let's break it down. The key to faster growth, what is it actually? Seeing growth as this team effort. It's realizing that growth comes from different areas. It's taking a data-driven and a rapid experimentation approach to growth and getting past those bottlenecks that are holding you back. And it's allowing for different approaches and KPIs to ensure that every single team in the organization will thrive. And so whilst organizations might still need a broader marketing team to work, and because this is kind of the fear, like, okay, but if it's not marketing, do we even need marketing? Yes, we do. That's the whole point. They might still have this separate marketing team, and they might have a head of growth, but the growth team needs to be a mix of these different departments and not just one or the other. So what does this look like in reality? The truth is there's different structures, and everyone always wants me to tell them what is the best one. I'm sorry, there is no best one. If you look at all the fastest growing organizations out there, all the like cliche examples that everyone loves to use, from Airbnb to Uber to Facebook to HubSpot, they use different ones of the three that I'm going to show you. Most commonly, they use the first or the second. But in the startup world, I've seen the third one being used very common. It's just not like an early stage startup. So they're just not as well-known names as maybe a few that I've just named. I'll share the advantages and disadvantages of each one as we go through it. The first is the independent growth team. This is like basically taking some people from each different department, putting them in a room if we worked in offices, which we don't as much anymore, and saying like, hey, you're not a growth team, you're a multidisciplinary team, you're reporting to the head of growth or VP growth, whatever name you want to call it. And these are just example. I always get people like, what about the other departments? These are not the only departments. I know that. I just can't fit every single one in it, and I don't want to overcomplicate it. And it's also not always these people. This is just an example. So the independent growth team. It's a separate little growth team working away in growth. And it's great because they're very focused, they have a lot of freedom, they get to move fast, they're only focused on growth, they have no distractions of the day-to-day. And growth definitely doesn't get seen as a marketing or product issue because the growth team's mostly disciplinary. But, and there is a but with every single one of these, can cause a lot of friction with the rest of the org. Like, the rest of the organization might not be very enthusiastic about this. Sometimes the growth team gets seen as a bit of a bulldozer who gets completely free reign and all the things they want until growth doesn't happen and it flips. But when growth is happening, it can happen a bit like that. It kind of implies that there's one team is responsible for growth and the rest can just do their thing. And there is often still a lot of dependencies. Like, these people need to be working full time. You often don't have enough work for it full time. To be honest, that's the number one reason this is usually not the structure in big organizations. But there's a lot of dependencies still on the rest, and it also means another disadvantage of this actually is that the person managing the team doesn't necessarily have all the expertise, so they might also not be necessarily the best manager in terms of helping those people skill up. Just like with Emma, I didn't have the hard skills to be able to teach her how to do social better. And as much as you can get an outside mentor, I do think it's always helpful when your manager is able to understand that. And as you grow, it looks like this. You basically just add more of these teams as you go along and have multiple different teams, each with a different focus. Here they're divided by parts of the funnel, but it can also be by product range, it can be by audience type, it really varies. But in this example, I've just done it like this. The second type is the cross-functional team model, which I think is kind of ironic because all of them are cross-functional teams in a way, but this is the official name of it. cross-functional team. And here we actually have that they each report into their own heads. So in this example, we have a head of marketing, product, engineering. And the growth product manager will report into either, or the growth manager will report into either product or, let's say, marketing. But they work together as one team, as one growth team. And this is great because like everyone feels partially responsible for growth. In these kind of structures, pretty much everyone is in some form of a growth team or squad or whatever you want to call it. You get a wider range of people involved, meaning more ideas. Yes, awesome. You don't necessarily need like a super senior head of growth separately, like because they're not on the highest level. They're usually reporting into marketing and product, but you can have various growth product managers managing it. But it does add complexity. You've now got two different ways that teams are forming, and you can have competing priorities. Like if you're reporting into two people, in a way you've got what one team's giving you, what the other is giving you, and that can cause a bit of clashes over time as well. And there's also the fact that the growth person leading it reports into a certain team might again make people feel a bit more like it's their team thing that's kind of pulling us in. That's another risk. As this grows, it looks something like this. Again, I've just used the same example, but we basically have these different people reporting into different parts and just different people leading it. Here we've got a growth manager leading the paid acquisition, which is focused a bit more on the marketing side. Got the growth product manager leading the activation part. And then here we've got the growth manager reporting into marketing. Blurry area could be also reporting into product on the side, but just to give you an idea of how this grows with different people. And again, there's way more people than just this who can fall into it. Like I usually also have someone from ops in there, customer care as well, but this is just for simplicity's sake and making sure it fits someone's life. The final one is the mixed model, very creatively named because it takes the independent and the cross-functional one and it merges them together. And here the growth team is a mix of team members, very similar to cross-functional in that sense, but we have a separate growth department. So we have a head of growth who has people reporting into him. And this is the model that I had at Heights actually, where I did have people reporting into me, but then we basically had separate teams as well, the product team, the ops team who are people in the growth team, and eventually head of brand marketing. Here we have a shared responsibility across the organization of heads. Yes, there is that growth person, but the other ones are people in their team that are reporting in and that we're working together to see who should be in the growth team and who shouldn't. It allows for better collaboration. There's less change to kind of set this up because usually it means that they can go on as they are and you can get a separate growth person in to help lead and help all this and make it as easy as possible and also pick up a bit more of the work with their growth full-time people who are potentially working in the team. And it's very easy to adjust. This is the same for the cross-functional. It's super easy to be like in, out, because there's no change over time who you need in that growth team. But there is, again, that reduced ownership. Same challenge as the cross-functional. It can be a bit unclear. Like we saw in the Venn diagram, there's overlaps. You know, who's in growth, who's in marketing, who's in growth. Product, who's in product. Like, there is those overlaps. And there's also competing priorities again. So like I said, each has their advantages and disadvantages. With the mixed team, it looks a bit like this. The growth team can grow. And then you've got those separate heads in there. And I've just mixed it up a bit every time with who I put in there, just to give you an idea of what this can look like and how this can change. And in none of these setups, you're probably going to notice growth is just a subset of marketing and product. We are not equating growth to marketing. We are not equating it to product. And again, I said it really depends, but trying to work out really depends on like what your key focus areas are at the time and what you expect them to be. Are they going to change a lot? Then the first model might not be great for you. Are they very static and do you struggle, for example, with like the current challenge you have is like focus, then the independent might be better for you. Each have their advantages and disadvantages, and so you really need to look at what are your current challenges and what are your key growth focus areas and use that to work out which of those disadvantages are the least going to be an issue for you, or finding ways to solve it in terms of, for example, with the mixed model, when we were working with it, I had set number of days per person in the growth team so that we could really plan based on their availability. And it was that we set the OKRs at the highest level together and made sure that they weren't competing, but that the people working in both had really clear OKRs that allowed them to know what to focus on. So, what I want you to take away today is the following. You need to have brand and growth to succeed. And you need to create a structure that allows them to flourish. You need to not equate growth as marketing, because when you do, this doesn't happen. So I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to keep screaming it on LinkedIn and everywhere till people start to hopefully not equate the two. Growth isn't marketing. And if you want to be successful, don't make the same mistakes I have, but allow the two to flourish. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just connect with me on LinkedIn. And I also have a newsletter, Growth Waves, which has a full guide to how to build a growth team that walks you through 7 steps to how to choose between those 3 models, because I couldn't cover that in full depth now. But if you're curious to set it up like that a bit further, make sure you stop treating growth as your marketing team. Definitely feel free to sign up. Just Google Growth Waves, Daphne Tideman, and you'll find it. And you'll receive the full guide in your first email. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something new.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing.